Hello, everyone. Welcome back to McDuff Lives, and today it's McDuff's Mindfields. The topic is populism. What's wrong with populism? I always thought populism, we the people, are good for the people. What's wrong with populism? Well, let's talk about it. Let's go. And welcome once again. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. Well, Mindfields is a chance for me to just spill what's on my mind. I try to keep it slightly organized, but if it's not all that organized, well, that's because my mind's not always all that organized. Let's just give you an idea of where we're going with this. I've got two sources I want to bring into the conversation. The first one is this book by Yuval Noah Harari. Yes, him. And it's called Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. 2024 book, republished in 2025 with a new prologue. And it is that prologue that I will be using to talk about populism today. The other one is Grok. And I had a conversation with Grok over the weekend, which I think really helped me understand all the nuances and problems with populism. If you call yourself a populist, you can get in a lot of trouble. It's got a bad name. Let's look at this cartoon first. I wanna start here. William Jennings Bryan, the famous populist, the candidate for president, the lawyer in the Scopes Monkey trial, and a man who is known as the farmer's friend, fighting against the big corporations and the big banks and the trusts at that time, the Rockefeller and the oil trusts and the robber barons, J.P. Morgan, and all the rest of them. A people's hero, William Jennings Bryan. But the popular cartoons of the day, this is one from a magazine. I'm sorry I couldn't identify the magazine. It looks like a Thomas Nast, but I'm not sure. But this one really grabbed my attention, and so let's look at it for a moment. The gentleman pictured there is William Jennings Bryan. He is the head of a snake, and the snake is called Populist Party. And what is this snake eating? The snake is eating the donkey of the Democratic Party. Yeah. So isn't that interesting? To me, I think there's a number of layers of meaning that we can get here. First of all, that the people that run the newspaper can't stand populism and can't stand William Jennings Bryan, so they want to portray him as something akin to the devil, the snake. But secondly, we see that he is devouring the Democratic Party and not the Republican Party. Well, wait a minute. This doesn't compute for me. Well, why isn't he devouring the Republican Party, which is where all the Gilded Age money is, instead of the Democratic Party? Well, there's, I think, the answer to what's going on in our politics today is that we have a MAGA movement, a Make America Great Again movement. It is this campaign slogan of Donald Trump in 2016, and it's caught on and has a life of its own now that people consider themselves MAGAs. They wear the MAGA hats. What are they but populists? They're people that want to return government to their control, to local control, to allow them to have the freedoms that they believe that their forefathers fought for and foremothers fought for, that want to have the American dream. They don't want to have taxes eating up their income. They want to be able to save. They want to be able to own property. They want to, in short, be that American family or person that was the iconic 1950s. You know, 2.5 children and a car in the garage, a house of your own, and a 30-year mortgage. That was the deal. And it was a pretty good deal for most people coming out of World War II. The powers that be have just eaten away at that dream to the point where most young people cannot afford to buy a house, even though they're employed. Most people have a hard time getting a job, especially if they don't have a specialty. And the economy itself is under a huge cloud of debt. When Kennedy was killed, the debt was a few $100 million. Now it is double digits, trillions of dollars, and that's a big difference. It's not payable. It's not anything that we'll ever get rid of, and it just simply means that we're always going to be paying taxes, if for no other reason than to pay the interest on the debt. So these things are against the goodwill of the common people. Another thing from the 50s that was good was the emergence of civil rights movements and the idea of the common man, meaning, mankind, not just males, but the common man being the theme of Aaron Copland's great overture, the fanfare for the common man, and the bringing of popular music into classical music and blending them together into something beautifully and American and uniquely American and something that we can carry into the future as the culture of a free people, what we do when we're allowed to have some spare time. But back to the cartoon. The Democratic Party is the victim there. Why? Because Republicans would never have been populist, but a lot of the base of the Democratic Party was, in fact, farmers and people that worked in industries that favored populism, and families of those people. The idea that we could survive as a nation of single-family farmers is very much part of it. I think it's very much alive right now. The resistance to corporate farming is a big item in the media, and hopefully somehow this country will get back to valuing self-reliance, self-sufficiency, and things like that are populist ideals. However, with the media taking the attitude that you see in this picture, you can see that it's the media that does not want to have their Democratic Party polluted by a populist. Now, who are we thinking about now? We're thinking about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is called a populist in Wikipedia. You look it up. It says, well, he is a kind of a populist. And then there's this thing called left-wing populism, which is, well, I never heard of it before, but I saw it on Wikipedia this morning. I thought, well, that's interesting, because this is what I think the solution has to be, is that if the name populism is bad, then we got to get another name. But to bring together the people on the right and the people on the left around a common cause that I think is the populist cause. It's the we the people part of the Constitution that needs to be reinvigorated and re-empowered. So, and that's all of us, it's all the people, we got to work together. But see how the media doesn't want that to happen. They don't want a populist party to succeed. And remember what happened to Bernie Sanders at the convention, the superdelegates and Hillary Clinton power, squashed the idea of ever having a populist or even a left-wing populist as president of this country. Well, that I think is a theme that is consistent in the politics of this country, and that is whenever something populist arises, it gets turned into something bad, like the snake in the picture. But I don't think of populism as a bad thing. I think that MAGA is the good-hearted people that just want their country back. I want our country back. I want to do all those things that Americans are supposed to be famous for, having the freedom to do things. Ride your Chevrolet across the country. Why not? Well, on the other side, we have people like Yuval Noah Harari. Yuval Noah Harari is that Israeli guy that is a populist, a publicist, not a populist, he's a publicist for the ideas of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and the Sustainable Development Goals and all of that stuff that most of us here at McDuff Lives think is horrible and horrific. So this is a little bit of opposition research that I did maybe 3 weeks ago. I bought this book. I would never buy a book by Yuval Noah Harari, but I've thumbed through it enough to see that I think there's information here that I should share. And so I'm going to share this. I'm going to start with that prologue that I talked about and just read a little bit. So this is the prologue to Nexus by Yuval Harari. We have named our species Homo sapiens, the wise human, but it's debatable how well we've lived up to the name. Over the last 100,000 years, we sapiens, and he just says we are the sapiens, right? Okay. As we are a species, and that's that question of, are we humans, like in the sense of Nicholas of Cusa that we talk about, of having God empowering us to do creative things and use reason, or are we just another animal, which is the default of these technocrats? So he uses the we're just another species style of talk. So he calls us the sapiens. We sapiens have certainly accumulated enormous power. Just listing all our discoveries, inventions, conquests would fill volumes, but power isn't wisdom. And after 100,000 years of discoveries, inventions, and conquests, humanity has pushed itself into an existential crisis. I hate that word. Existentialism is Jean-Paul Sartre. It has nothing to do with is the world going to end? But, well, ever since Gold in My Ear, it does. She's the one that coined it in this term, in the modern sense of, we're going to have an existential crisis, so we've got to bomb Syria or something. Sorry about that. That's the way my mind works, okay? This is why I call it Mindfields. We are on the verge of ecological collapse caused by the misuse of our own power. Oh, come on, man. We're not on the verge of ecological collapse. But that's part of the psyop that the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development people want us to believe. So he just says it as a matter of fact, as instead of saying it's his opinion. He says it's a fact. We are on the verge of ecological collapse, says he. caused, of course, by the misuse of our own power. We're also busy creating new technologies like artificial intelligence that have the potential to escape our control. Oh no, sorry, Dave, I can't do that. And enslave or annihilate us. Yet instead of our species uniting, this is that's just my pleas. Let's unite to deal with these existential challenges. Again, international tensions are rising. Global cooperation is becoming more difficult. Countries are stockpiling doomsday weapons, and a new world war does not seem impossible. Okay, let's stop for a second. Again, all of these things are the result of the concentration of wealth and the ongoing Leviathan that we talked about with Harley Schlanger on Tuesday, the great empire that's swallowing up all the other fish and rules the oceans, that rules the world. They're the ones that keep us divided. Mr. Harari doesn't see it. He just doesn't see it. Okay, so now it's not a problem of power of we the people having no power. It's now a problem because we are stupid. Okay. If we are sapiens, if we are so wise, why are we so self-destructive? At a deeper level, although we have accumulated so much information about everything from DNA to distant galaxies, it doesn't seem as though all this information has given us answers to the big questions of life. Who are we? What should we aspire to? What is a good life and how should we live it? Despite the stupendous amounts of information at our disposal, we are as susceptible as our ancient ancestors to fantasy and delusion. Nazism and Stalinism are but two recent examples of the mass insanity that occasionally engulfs even modern societies. Okay, this is Harari selling us some more of that WEF propaganda. Nazism and Stalinism are examples of mass insanity that occasionally comes along. Just, oh, geez, here comes some insanity, and it's going to suddenly grab the minds of all the people of Germany, all the people of Russia, all the people of Italy, all the people of Spain. And, they're going to support a demagogue because they're crazy. They're just incredibly insane. That's what he says, mass insanity. And that's how he explains the rise of Nazism and the rise of Stalinism. This is a picture of the other side from my side of the view. From my side, it's obvious that these things result from the manipulation of economies and populations and wars by the elites. And I use the word elites broadly. I mean the aristocrats and the kings and the bankers and the big corporations and the oil companies. And, you know, the, these people do have an interest in keeping us from uniting. So why do we not unite? Because we are not allowed to unite. Because they make cartoons like that one from the magazine 100 years ago. Because, oh, populism, oh my God, it's going to eat up democracy. Why are we so good at accumulating more information and power, but far less successful at acquiring wisdom? Wisdom. I love that word, I'll never forget seeing Dolan at Trump's first inauguration, and he gives the invocation to prayer. He's a Cardinal Dolan. He's like the head of the American Catholic Church, the successor in interest to Cardinal Spellman, who we talk about on the show here. So Cardinal Dolan, and he's in the middle of his prayer. He's like praying for wisdom. Wisdom, give us wisdom. What we need is transparency, responsibility, and Congress that is not beholden to foreign powers and money. That's a lot more helpful than just saying, God, please give us wisdom. And he recites the cautionary fable of the sorcerer's apprentice from Goethe, uh, popularized in Fantasia. You've probably seen the sorcerer's apprentice in that, where he's got a broom and suddenly he's got 1,000 brooms, and the brooms are out of control, and the master of the apprentice, the sorcerer himself, comes out, and everything's a mess because Mickey Mouse Mickeyed around with his magic wand. The spirits that I summoned, I now cannot rid myself again, quote unquote. So we've summoned a spirit and we can't get rid of it. We summoned a Hitler. We summoned a Stalin. We summoned, William Jennings Bryan. We summoned Trump. From my point of view, we summoned Biden. I don't know. What do the cautionary fables of The Apprentice and of the Phaeton tell us in the 21st century? We humans have obviously refused to heed their warnings. We have already driven the Earth's climate out of balance. Oh, okay. So we are insane, and we have already driven the climate out of balance. So again, two World Economic Forum talking points assumed as truth, just a fortiori, and has summoned billions of enchanted brooms, drones, chatbots, and other algorithmic spirits that may escape our control and unleash a flood of unintended consequences. What should we do then? The fables offer no answers other than to wait for some god or sorcerer to save us. This, of course, is an extremely dangerous message. It encourages people to abdicate responsibility and put their faith in gods and sorcerers instead. I'm following his logic, but I just don't buy it. Even worse, it fails to appreciate that gods and sorcerers are themselves a human invention, just like chariots, brooms, and algorithms. Okay, so now we know you're a complete and total atheist, Mr. Harari, as is the British financial system, as is the British East India Company, as is the local bank, who will take your house if you don't pay the mortgage. There is nothing human about this system, because there are no gods. Gods are just made up by insane humans. This is the wisdom that Mr. Harari wants us to imbibe. The tendency to create powerful things with unintended consequences started not with the invention of the steam engine or AI, but with the invention of, what do you think? Religion. Yeah. Prophets and theologians have summoned powerful spirits that were supposed to bring love and joy, but occasionally ended up flooding the world with blood. Okay. Power always stems from cooperation between large numbers of humans. Okay? So this is where power comes from, is you get a whole bunch of humans together and you're powerful. Well, in the ancient world, I think that's true. The team with the biggest army would generally win. Accordingly, it isn't our individual psychology that causes us to abuse power. After all, alongside greed, hubris, and cruelty, humans are also capable of love, compassion, humility, and joy. True, among the worst members of our species, greed and cruelty reign supreme and lead bad actors to abuse power. But why would human societies choose to entrust power to their worst members? Most Germans in 1933, for example, were not psychopaths, so why did they vote for Hitler? Our tendency to summon powers we cannot control stems not from individual psychology, but from the unique way our species cooperates in large numbers. Okay? Now picture Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith sitting on the bench in Men in Black 1, and Will Smith is getting clued in by Tommy Lee Jones, and he explains how, individual people are smart and make good choices, but humans as a group are dumber than anything, and they'll just roll right off a cliff if they're led. That is the pitch. The same pitch that Harari is making here is that in large groups, we really tend to call upon a demagogue, a sorcerer, a religious figure, a Trump. Our problem then is a network problem. For tens of thousands of years, sapiens built and maintained large networks by inventing and spreading fictions, fantasies, and mass delusions about gods, about enchanted broomsticks, about AI, and about a great many other things. While each individual human is typically interested in knowing the truth about themselves in the world, large networks bind members and create order by relying on fictions and fantasies. That's how we got, for example, to Nazism and Stalinism makes the point again. These were exceptionally powerful networks held together by exceptionally deluded ideas. I mean, I could argue that all day long. Look at Nazism. Where did that come from? It came from the banks and the British and Winston Churchill and their desire to create a demagogue to lead the fight against Soviet Russia. And the people that followed along with it, why did they follow along? Well, the Catholics followed along because Pacelli, the Pope, said, "It's cool. Let's have a deal with Nazism." Why did the Lutherans and the rest of them follow along? Well, because, they did. But I would analyze it from that point of view much more than just throw up my hand and say, "Oh, this is a network problem." Sapiens just don't cooperate well enough to keep their wits about them. Okay. The fact that the Nazi and Stalinist regimes were founded on cruel fantasies and shameless lies did not make them historically exceptional, nor did it preordain them to collapse. Nazism and Stalinism were two of the strongest networks humans ever created. In late 1941 and early 42, the Axis powers came within reach of winning World War II. Stalin eventually emerged as a victor of that war, and in the 50s and 60s, he and his heirs also had a reasonable chance of winning the Cold War. No, they didn't. Come on. That's all CIA propaganda. If you study this stuff, Harari, you know this. You're just selling us propaganda. By the 1990s, liberal democracies had gained the upper hand. Really? Liberal democracies had been subverted. But this now looks like a temporary victory. In the 21st century, some new totalitarian regime may well succeed where Hitler and Stalin failed, creating an all-powerful network that could prevent future generations from even attempting to expose its lies and fictions. We should not assume that delusional networks are doomed to failure. If we want to prevent their triumph, we will have to do the hard work ourselves. Okay. Moving on to page 20 of the prologue, and sorry for skipping around, but I want to hit this part as well. Despite, or perhaps because of our hoard of data, we are continuing to spew greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, pollute rivers and oceans, cut down forests, destroy entire habitats, drive countless species to extinction, and jeopardize the ecological foundations of our own species. We are also producing ever more powerful weapons of mass destruction, from thermonuclear bombs to doomsday viruses. Okay, at least he admits that we're producing bioweapons, doomsday viruses. Our leaders don't lack information about these dangers, yet instead of collaborating to find solutions, they are edging closer to a global war. Why is that? Because the people in power want the global war. Why is it? Because they don't want so many people around, and they're happy to see some viruses that might reduce the burden on them of having so many people around. All right, Harari. My opposition research gets me really, really pissed off at you. Would having even more information make things better or worse? We'll soon find out. Numerous corporations are in a race to develop the most powerful information technology in history, AI. Some leading entrepreneurs, such as Mark Andreessen, believe that AI will finally solve all of humanity's problems. Ray Kurzweil concurs. The singularity is nearer, he says. AI is the pivotal technology that will allow us to meet the pressing challenges that confront us, including overcoming disease, poverty, environmental degradation, and all of our human frailties. We have a moral imperative to realize this promise of new technologies. Kurzweil is keenly aware of the technology's potential perils and analyzes them at length, but believes they could be mitigated successfully. I have to say, after thinking about this stuff and about the risk of, AI, the risk of AI is that it gets into the hands of bad actors like these elites that want to have a war. I'm not afraid that that AI is suddenly take on a devilish personality of its own, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice or the Mephistopheles or some demon that's going to use it to destroy America or destroy the world. Blow us up with nuclear bombs or whatever. And that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the powerful people, the elites, the humans themselves that have the power to create these systems. So to indict all of humanity for creating a situation where this could happen is such a throw. It's a throw from the real problem. And that is that, yeah, I don't want this universal technological lockdown. But the way around it is not to just kick back and say, oh, we're so stupid, we can't work together, and we better let the experts handle it. That's what the WEF is all about, is turn everything over to experts, including whether people live or die, whether whether people lose their ability to reproduce, whether there's somebody that can judge somebody to be unfeeble, to be feeble-minded, pardon me, as has happened over and over again in our history. It's not the common people that come up with these ideas. It is you know who it is. Weaponizing information his past book, Homo Deus, meaning man God, hypothesized hypothesized that if humans aren't careful, we might dissolve within the torrent of information like a clump of earth within a gushing river, and that in the grand scheme of things, humanity will turn out to have been just a ripple within the cosmic data flow. He doesn't have any spirituality, any idea of God, any idea of a creator, benevolent or otherwise. Just nothing. There's nothing here for Harari except for what he can see, what he can count, and humans are just another species. As AI evolves and accumulates power, the human-centered system we have created will be replaced by a radically different system that treats all phenomena, including even human beings, as clusters and eddies of information. So he's saying, it's coming, and a lot of my colleagues on the internet are saying it's coming too. I mean, Courtney Turner, for instance, so many of these great thinkers are seeing this coming. And the digital idea being imposed in Great Britain and Europe, New Zealand, Australia, and it's coming here. America is the last hope of mankind, as Lincoln famously said. But it's coming here, and Trump's not going to stop it. That's me. That's my opinion. In the human-centered system, authority stems from human feelings and desires. Yeah, I agree with that. And the highest values are the rights and freedoms of human beings. All right. In the years since that book was published, the pace of change has only accelerated, and power has indeed been shifting from humans to algorithms. Human feelings and desires are hacked and manipulated like never before, whereas information moves and evolves so fast that it threatens to make the world unintelligible and unmanageable for human cognition. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They make things change so fast that we just finally give up. I can't keep up. Many of the scenarios that sounded like science fiction in 2016, such as algorithms that can create art, masquerade as human beings, make crucial life decisions about us, and know more about us than we know about ourselves, are everyday realities in 2024. Why is that? Because we all got doxxed, because they stole all of our data, because they put it into these big computers and, they didn't pay for it. It's like they're ripping off everybody's information, and now they're claiming that they have this great brain that can figure things out fast. Well, why? Because they stole all the information and they're still stealing it. But no, from Harari's point of view, it's just the machine has gotten smarter and smarter. That's what Musk will tell you. Does this mean, oh, it's a machine? It's just a really smart machine. No, they stole everything. Okay. Many other things have changed since 2016. The ecological crisis has intensified. International tensions have escalated. And a populist wave, now we get to the populist words, the populist wave has undermined the cohesion of even the most robust democracies. Did you see the snake coming along? Where? I'm going to eat your democracy. I'm an evil populist. Grrr. Yeah. Yeah, the snake, William Jennings Bryan is going to devour the Democratic Party, just like Bernie Sanders was going to devour it. So we had to take it back from him. Okay. Populism has also mounted a radical challenge to the naive view of information. Populist leaders such as Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro, and populist movements and conspiracy theories such as QAnon and the anti-vaxxers. See now, you anti-vaxxers out there, you're conspiracy theorists. There's no question about it. It is absolutely a basic fact that you have to accept if you want to understand the world. Anti-vaxxers, QAnon, Donald Trump, populists, and conspiracy theories. They're all the same. Okay? So be careful if you label yourself as a populist, because everybody's going to hear conspiracy theorist. Populist leaders such as Trump and Bolsonaro, and populist movements and conspiracy theories such as QAnon and the anti-vaxxers have argued that all traditional institutions that gain authority by claiming to gather information and discover truth are simply lying. Where the hell did you get that, Yuval? You mean those of us that want to make America great again, when we see the statistics compiled by the Bureau of Labor Statistics or the Treasury Department or the DOD, Department of War, the statistics, yeah, they're all lying. They're all lying. The only people that knows the truth is Donald Trump or me or, some demagogue or perhaps a sorcerer or perhaps a religious person. They know the truth. Yeah. So you're labeled as a stupid person if you claim to be a populist. And you think everybody that gathers information and disseminates it and discovers truth, they must be lying. Bureaucrats, judges, doctors, mainstream journalists, and academic experts are elite cabals that have no interest in truth and are deliberately spreading disinformation to gain power and privileges for themselves at the expense of the people, quote unquote. This is what Harari says that we believe, that if you're a populist and you believe that all of these academic experts are nothing but elite cabals that have no interest in the truth. He makes it up and sells it, and he gets, millions of copies sold because this is the Kool-Aid that they want to drink. As I said, this is Oppo research. This is not my research. This is not my feeling at all. But I think it's important that we bring these points out about populism. The rise of politicians like Trump and movements like QAnon has a specific political context unique to the condition of the United States in the late 2010s. But populism as an anti-establishment worldview long predated Trump and is relevant to numerous other historical contexts now and in the future. In a nutshell, populism views information as a weapon. Yes, in the more extreme versions, populism posits that there is no objective truth at all. No, it doesn't. I mean, I don't understand the idea that just because you're a populist, you also deny that there's any objective truth. That doesn't connect at all, unless you're a propagandist like this guy. There is no objective truth at all, and that everyone has, quote, their own truth, unquote, with which they wield to vanquish rivals. According to this worldview, power is the only reality. All social interactions are power struggles because humans are interested only in power. You know what? I think Klaus Schwab is interested only in power, but as humans, you don't know nothing about humans, sir. The claim to be interested in something else, like truth or justice, is nothing more than a ploy to gain power. Yeah. Why don't you just go ahead and tell us how you feel there, Mr. Harari? Nouns like facts and adjectives like accurate and truthful become elusive. They become elusive because people come up with ideas from the propaganda mills called neuro-linguistic programming and the idea of fashioning language to control thought as a psychological program that can be forced upon the masses through the control of media. You didn't think of that, did you, Mr. Harari? Yeah. So no, it's just humans are so stupid that they just fall into these traps. Such words are not taken as pointing to a common objective reality. What are you talking about? We're all about finding, we want to believe in common sense. The idea that we as people have certain things in common that allow us to think together as long as we have the opportunity to sort through our various points of view, put the facts on the table like a jury does, and come up with a reasonable and wise answer. If you're saying that we don't have those powers, then you're just saying that humans are in fact nothing but donkeys on two legs, which is exactly what he's saying. It should be stressed. Now let's see. Rather, any talk of facts or truth is bound to prompt at least some people to ask, whose facts and whose truth are you referring to? No, it's not. I never heard that. It should be stressed that this power-focused and deeply skeptical view of information isn't a new phenomenon, and it wasn't invented by anti-vaxxers, flat earthers, Bolsonaristas, or Trump supporters. Similar views were propagated long before 2016, including by some of humanity's brightest minds. In the late 20th century, for example, intellectuals from the radical left like Michael Foucault and Edward Said claimed that scientific institutions like clinics and universities are not pursuing timeless and objective truths, but are instead using power to determine what counts as truth in the service of capitalist and colonialist elites. Yeah, that's what they were saying. I think Edward Said had it exactly right. And look at the way that money has just infiltrated and taken over all of our all of our universities, all of our colleges are affected by huge grants from non NGOs and secret grants from the CIA, and using our institutions to foster the power and promote the agenda of capitalism and colonialism, exactly as he says. These radical critiques occasionally went as far as arguing that scientific facts are nothing more than a capitalist or colonialist discourse, and that people in power can never be really interested in truth and can never be trusted to recognize and correct their own their own mistakes. If power is the only reality, and if information is just a weapon, what does it imply about the populists themselves? Are they too interested only in power? Or are they too lying to us to gain power? Populists have sought to extricate themselves from this conundrum in two different ways. They tell people that indeed you should never trust any institutions or figures of authority, including self-proclaimed populist parties and politicians. Instead, you should, quote, do your own research, unquote. You know what? I have said that. I don't, not lately, but, when I was first getting started and people would ask me a pointed question like, how do you know that? And my answer is do your own research. And that's because you already have an attitude. You already have, a skepticism. So I'm not going to be able to break through your skepticism because you don't have the foundation. You don't know the basics. You got to do that yourself. That's what that means. It doesn't mean trust only what you can directly observe by yourself, as Harari says. This radical empiricist position implies that while large-scale institutions can never be trusted, individuals who make the effort can still find the truth by themselves. This approach may sound scientific and may appeal to free-spirited individuals, but it leaves open the question of how human communities can cooperate to build healthcare systems or pass environmental regulations, which demands large-scale institutional organization. Is a single individual capable of doing all the necessary research to decide whether the Earth's climate is heating up and what should be done about it? That's a good question. Is a single person able to do that? No. But is the World Economic Forum trustworthy place to have that research done and summarized and taught as fact? I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. It's not because they can't do it. It's because they won't do it, because they don't want to spread the wealth. They want us to stay in this servile status where our dollar keeps getting worth less and less, and our futures look darker and darker. That's where they want us. Not because we, as a mass, are stupid. And is the Earth climate heating up? Well, if you listen to the propaganda, it's been heating up like crazy. But if you look at the sea level outside of my house, it hadn't changed in 20 years. Trusting only my own research may sound scientific, but in practice it amounts to believing that there is no objective truth, so he says. An alternative populist solution is to abandon the modern scientific ideal of finding the truth via research and instead go back to relying on divine revelation or mysticism. Traditional religions like Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism have typically characterized humans as untrustworthy, power-hungry creatures who can access the truth only thanks to the intervention of a divine intelligence. In the 2010s and 2020s, populist parties from Brazil to Turkey and from the United States to India have aligned themselves with such traditional religions. They have expressed radical doubt about modern institutions while declaring complete faith in ancient scriptures. The populists claim that articles you read in the New York Times or in Science are just an elite ploy to gain power. But what you read in the Bible, the Quran, or the Vedas is absolute truth. A variation on this theme calls on people to put their trust in charismatic leaders like Trump and Bolsonaro, who are depicted by their supporters either as the messengers of God or as possessing a mystical bond with, quote, the people, unquote. While ordinary politicians lie to the people in order to gain power for themselves, the charismatic leader is the infallible mouthpiece of the people who exposes all the lies. One of the recurrent paradoxes of populism is that it starts by warning us that all human elites are driven by a dangerous hunger for power, but often ends by entrusting all power to a single ambitious human. It is important to note that populists are eroding trust in large-scale institutions and international cooperation just when humanity confronts the existential challenges, love that word, of ecological collapse, global war, and out-of-control technology. Instead of trusting, let's trust Fauci. That's what we should do. We should all trust Anthony Fauci. Man, told you it's opposition research, folks. I guess I'm kind of enjoying it because you realize that this guy is one of the less deep thinkers that you run across in popular literature. He hasn't got anything but propaganda. He's nothing. There's nothing here. If we wish to avoid relinquishing power to a charismatic leader or an inscrutable AI, we must first gain a better understanding of what information is. Populists are right to be suspicious of the naive view of information, but they are wrong to think that power is the only reality and that information is always a weapon. Information isn't the raw material of truth, but it isn't a mere weapon either. There's enough space between these extremes for a more nuanced and hopeful view of human information networks and of our ability to handle power wisely. This book is dedicated to exploring that middle ground. Okay, so we populists are living in the past, and we are very susceptible to sorcerers and mystics and religious demagogues And of course, that man on the horseback, the the political demagogue. Well, I didn't get to my grok part of the presentation today, but I really enjoyed going through this New York Times bestseller, Nexus: A Brief History of Information Networks, and a whole boatload of propaganda against those of us that consider ourselves to be we the people and consider ourselves to be shut out of politics over and over again, from William Jennings Bryan to Bernie Sanders to uh, the MAGA people who now are finding that Trump is also under control and not going to deliver on a lot of the promises. We don't get the JFK files. We don't get the Epstein files. We don't trust, you know, the denials by our attorney general, and we are sitting back and watching what looks to be some awful, terrible violations of human rights. Um, our Congress isn't stopping it. The president is doing it, and we don't know. We don't know ultimately whether he sees more than we do. Does he see a real insurrection that he is pulling out the agents of before something happens? Is his policy of having the military shoot these undefensible drug boats and murder everybody aboard? Is that something we have to put up with in order to gain our feeling of having America back? It's all becomes, once again, just like the first administration, only at least we had a few months. Again, the situation is that we could hope, we could pray, we could put our faith into Donald Trump to get him elected, because I think all of us knew that he was a better choice than the one that the Democrats offered. And the continuation of those Democratic policies, such as the lockdowns and the forced injections and the criminal activity in Ukraine and all that, we needed it to stop. But what we need more than anything is unity with the people that are just like us, but they're on the left and they've been given the propaganda from the left, and they believe all these things that Mr. Harari is saying. And so they make his book into a New York Times bestseller. Just think of it this way. This tells us what we're up against. It tells me what I'm up against. And in that way, I think it helps me. It helps, and I hope it helps you to analyze, how it is that America can never stand up for we the people, at least so far. Well, that's my Mindfields for today. Thank you very much. And tomorrow I will be back with Marcia right here at 11 a.m. for our weekly live chat and news roundup. Think of what your top stories are for the week and drop them in our chat room tomorrow morning. I look forward to it. And once again, thanks for your support here at McDuff Lives. We really appreciate your being with us. Bye-bye now.